Good evening, Bahamas. Coming up tonight.
The Court of Appeal dismisses the appeal in the Frank Smith case.
NEMA officials warning residents in the northern Bahamas to be prepared for the possibility of a hurricane.
Our News is brought to you by Alive.
Welcome to Our News, and thanks for joining us. I'm Kyle Joaquin. Former PLP Senator Frank Smith will not face a retrial in the Magistrates Court. That decision was handed down in the Court of Appeal this morning after justices upheld Chief Magistrate Joyanne Ferguson-Pratt's decision to acquit the former Public Hospitals Authority chairman of bribery and extortion charges. Jasmine Brown has more.
There were emotional reactions inside court and outside court as it set in after the justices told Smith he was free to go.
Frank Smith is free. You can't go on. You can't go on.
That was the reaction of one of Smith's supporters as they celebrated the Court of Appeal's decision to uphold the Chief Magistrate's decision. Prosecutors were challenging what they termed the flawed and erroneous February 1st ruling of Chief Magistrate Joyanne Ferguson-Pratt to acquit Smith on allegations that he extorted Barbara Hanna, the owner of Magic Touch Cleaning Company. However, the appellate judges dismissed the appeal. The 26-page ruling handed down by Justices John Isaacs, Stella Crane Scott, and Roy Jones noted that there is some merit to the appellant's complaints about procedural missteps the Chief Magistrate may have made, but they said in their view they did not impact the result of the case to any significant degree, as there was an abundance of examples of doubtful testimony from Mrs. Hanna, which compelled the Chief Magistrate to her eventual conclusion. The ruling also stated the prosecution's case was not helped by the production of telephone logs, which, although later not relied upon, had already had a malignant effect on the proceedings, and that additionally, the timing of the award of a cleaning contract in what may be described as unusual circumstances has added to a profound malaise. At the conclusion of the proceedings on Wednesday morning, Justice Isaacs told Smith that he is free to go. Outside court, Smith was flanked by more than a dozen family members and friends, including former Prime Minister Perry Christie, opposition leader Philip Brave Davis, and PLP Deputy Leader Chester Cooper.
It's a wonderful feeling.
Smith says he feels the Court of Appeal's decision was vindication. He thanked his legal team and family for sticking with him for a tumultuous 2 years.
I'd wish to thank our children who have been through a lot as a result of this matter over the last few years, and it's dragged on for a few years. I want to thank the prayer warriors out there who constantly uplifted us in their prayers.
Smith also insisted the outcome of his case is proof the justice system works.
This system of checks and balances that would allow us to reach and arrive at this day where justice was done and also seemed to be done.
Deputy Director of Public Prosecutions Neil Brathwaite announced in court that the Office of the Attorney General will be filing for leave to appeal the ruling before the Privy Council. Reporting for Our News, I'm Jasmine Brown.
Outside court today, Progressive Liberal Party leader Philip Davis renewed his call for the resignations of Minister of Health Dr. Dwayne Sands and Minister of National Security Marvin Dames, who were chastised by the Chief Magistrate earlier this year when Smith was acquitted in the Magistrates Court. He said the opposition is pleased with the day's outcome.
Today is a great day for the rule of law.
Davis also reiterated his claim that politics played a role in the case.
The obvious politics of this continues to grapple in this matter.
Met officials are urging Bahamians to prepare for the possibility of a hurricane within the next few days. This as Dorian reached hurricane strength today. Jared Higgs reports.
As Hurricane Dorian makes its way past Puerto Rico, officials from the Bahamas Department of Meteorology have discontinued a hurricane alert for the southern Bahamas. Instead, they're eyeing the possibility of the storm making landfall in the northern Bahamas.
It is expected that Dorian would intensify and also expand in terms of size.
Senior Deputy Director of the Bahamas Department of Meteorology, Jeffrey Simmons, says storm trackers show Dorian passing to the east of the Bahamas. The problem for us is that those predictions also show the storm taking a turn to the west toward the northern islands.
Islands like Eleuthera, Abaco, Grand Bahama, and Bimini.
Simmons says with Dorian heading for open waters, the conditions are ripe for strengthening. And with $820 million in losses due to hurricanes in the past 5 years, NEMA Director Captain Stephen Russell says there is real concern for vulnerabilities in the Northern Islands. There's the risky glass window bridge in Eleuthera and low-lying areas in Abaco and East Grand Bahama. He says shanty towns are also at risk.
Central Abaco area, the Marsh Harbor area, that's a vulnerable area where you have the mud and those other migrant communities. They are susceptible to serious damage as a result of major storms that may be affecting the Abaco areas.
NEMA has been criticized in the past for its response to major storms. However, Russell insists that the agency has turned over a new leaf. A disaster preparedness drill earlier this summer tested the agency's response to a Category 4 hurricane. Russell says the exercise was successful and NEMA is ready for every possibility.
And these messages and keeping your breath is to ultimately save lives. We want to minimize the persons who may be injured as a result of these storms, and we definitely want to reduce the losses and damages as a result of these storms. That's why we're saying that people should be resilient. You know a storm is coming, you have 3-4 days notice that a storm is approaching. You know what is required to secure your home, your property, your business, your assets. That's why we stress for persons to be prepared.
In the past 5 years, the Bahamas has endured 3 major storms, 4 if Dorian makes landfall. Reporting for Our News, I'm Jared Higgs.
Well, full Doppler radar coverage is still months away, according to officials from the Met Department. However, 3 new Doppler radars have expanded forecasters' range in tracking weather systems near the Bahamas. In 2015, it was revealed that the single Doppler radar in New Providence was unable to detect Hurricane Joaquin, as it never came within its 250-mile range. Plans for 2 more radars in Ragged Island and Mayaguana would result in full coverage being provided to the islands.
That provides us coverage for all of the northern Bahamas and central Bahamas, and that gives us coverage down to as far as Auckland and Crooked Island, but not very good. That's the reason why we're going to put another one in Mayaguana. So the next one is replacing Mayaguana, which would then cover the entire those parts of the southern Bahamas that are not visible at this time.
With Hurricane Dorian approaching, Simmons insists the lack of radar coverage is compensated for.
The weather radar is an important tool in our ability to track and forecast hurricane. However, it is not the only tool. We have other tools available to us that we use, such as satellite imageries and other things like that.
As Hurricane Dorian makes its way past Puerto Rico and the Dominican Republic, forecasters are projecting the system will move over or very near to Abaco and Grand Bahama at Category 2 or 3 hurricane strength this weekend. East Grand Bahama MP Peter Turnquist said while Grand Bahamians are no strangers to hurricanes, preparation is key.
This one looks like it's taking a similar track to Floyd, and if we use that as a guide, we know that there's going to be flooding on the North Shore, and so those persons that are on the North Shore, whether from the Fishing Hole Road all the way down to Grand Bahama Highway, those persons ought to be looking at their preparations now, moving important items to high ground, or elevating their furniture off of the ground, all of those things that they can do to minimize and mitigate risk.
North Abaco MP Darren Henfield said Abaconians are usually well prepared for storms and added that this time should be no different.
We're normally pretty good in Abaco at managing these events. We're normally well prepared, and I think we're on course to be ready for whatever happens on the weekend. We hope and pray that it doesn't come, but in any event, we believe we're going to get a lot of rain, even if it nudges further to the east, and so we're prepared.
Despite a Supreme Court order for the Bahamas Doctors Union to instruct its members to return to work, the Public Hospitals Authority says the BDU continued its industrial action today. As a result, officials say services at Princess Margaret Hospital, Rand Memorial Hospital, Sandilands Rehabilitation Center, and Grand Bahama Clinics are limited to emergencies only. Emergencies are classified as injuries or illnesses that threaten life or limb. Justice Ian Winder granted an injunction against the BDU around 5:45 Tuesday afternoon. It was ordered that the union be restrained from contravening sections 76, 77, and 83 of the Industrial Relations Act. The matter will be argued before Winder tomorrow at 2:30 p.m. In other news, government officials signed a heads of agreement today for the development of Nassau's cruise port. Prime Minister Dr. Hubert Minnis said hundreds of jobs will be created during construction alone, and there will be opportunities for those who work in the tourism industry.
Prince George Wharf will remain in the hands of the Bahamian people. So don't listen to any gossip out there.
The signing paves the way for a new $250 million cruise port by Global Port Holdings. The new world-class port will include a new terminal, waterfront park, a harbor village, amphitheater, and a Junkanoo museum in addition to shops and restaurants.
We will employ, probably, Mike, correct me if I'm wrong, I was going to get to you, but 100% Bahamian employees, at least after the first initial 1 or 2 years. There won't be any expats.
According to Prime Minister Dr. Hubert Minnis, 500 jobs will be created during construction, and the majority of shares will be owned by Bahamians through the Bahamas Investment Fund.
2 classes of investor shares, namely Class A and Class B, on a bottom-up basis with objective to achieve participation by approximately 20,000 investors. That is, the small average man on the street, starting from his penny up, will have an opportunity as opposed to the big man coming down.
The new port will mean more room for cruise ships to dock. With this move, Global Port Holdings is set to make the Bahamas its headquarters for North, Central, and South America, according to the Prime Minister. In the heads of agreement, Nassau Cruise Ports Limited has agreed to several provisions during the initial term, including a $1 million grant to the Small Business Development Center.
Before the construction completion, provide to BIF, the investment fund, a grant of $10 million for its funding of loans to qualifying Bahamians for their investment in the project through BIF.
The project is scheduled to be completed by 2022. Kiosks will be created for current vendors, while a Junkanoo museum will be established to showcase the history and culture of the Bahamas with its own multimedia show. Another feature will be a large open-air amphitheater, which will feature local and international activities, concerts, and shows, all of which will create special incentives for the cruise lines to stay in port longer.
One thing I have to stress, which is very important, this is a lease operation. The Bahamians are the owners. As a matter of fact, it's not even a lease operation. The Bahamians are the owners of the port, land-wise, ownership-wise. We are just a minority and bringing in our expertise and marketing capability worldwide. This is very, very important.
Well, former Transport and Aviation Minister Gladys Hannah-Martin says after listening to the flowery talk during that heads of agreement signing, she is still waiting for specific details to be disclosed. She called it an absolute disgrace.
We got not one single detail of the relationship between the Bahamas government or Bahamian people and Global Port Holdings as it relates to our port. I'm shocked because this event was about an hour long, and we've had not one specific about the nature of the arrangement, the financial aspects of it. We were told we're going to get $2 million here and $1 million there, and of course it's probably perceived that our heads are swinging now because we heard these big numbers.
In a video she shared on social media, Hannah-Martin accused the government of insulting Bahamians' intelligence. She labeled the signing a tragedy in the life of the Bahamian people.
I'm really making this short video, which is a first for me, to do 2 things. One is to express my grave disappointment that we have determined that we would divest in some legal way control of our port, the most important seaport in the Commonwealth of the Bahamas, to a foreign entity. There's been no transparency. And I think the Prime Minister should be ashamed of himself to stand up there and think he's doing something good for the Bahamian people without giving us the information we are entitled to.
Still to come, preschool education expansion plans underway. The details after this break.